So we basically, so some Dark Materials is probably quite a good example, because you start off with the script for the first series and you kind of are conscious that there's a fan base already for the book, but we're there to publicise the TV show, so we have to sort of start off on that kind of base when nobody may know anything about it. So as publicists, we then kind of do our research, read the books, figure out how we're doing it differently to the book, how if there's a film, which for Dark Materials there was The Golden Compass, so it was how we would manage, that wasn't very popular, so how would we manage that versus what we were doing. Then we meet with all the kind of execs whose vision it is, and we say to them, how are you doing this? And we listen, we spend a lot of time listening to other people talk about costume sets, storylines, and then you sort of slowly move through to casting. They start casting people, and we then start the process of announcing it all. So it's announcing we're filming it, announcing who's cast as who, and then at that point we're also coming up with social media assets to go on all the channels as well. So for Dark Materials, for instance, we started social media channels 6 months before we started filming, and obviously there's nothing to fill those with, so we have to start being very clever about how we kind of populate those without giving anything away. Then we start filming, and we then sort of throw ourselves into creating all the assets, which is everything from photography, unit photography, EPKs, which are the little features that you see. So we have to organise B-roll filming, which is sort of filming of what's going on, come up with the ideas for those little films. So for Dark Materials, it's about, how do we create the demons? How do they create the worlds? We have to organise interviews with all the cast on camera and the creatives. Then you get to the end of filming, and then you sort of take a breath and you pull all of it together while still running the social media channels, whilst then moving through the pre-transmission period where things start to be revealed, like trailers and first look photographs, and then you work slowly to the sort of point of going, ta-da, this is it, it's coming, we've got a few weeks to go. Covers of Radio Times Culture, all the things you set up while you were filming, and creating all the kind of stuff that you see around transmission. And then all the way through transmission, you've obviously got to keep that momentum up, both in the press and on social media. And again, you get to the end of a programme, something like Dark Materials, even when we get to the end of transmission of Series 3, there's a legacy, because we also look after Bad Wolf as well, who made the programme. So there's then a legacy, which we kind of keep an eye on, like, all the assets, all the costumes they'll keep, and all the props they'll keep, and whether there's events or exhibitions that come out of it. And so you never really stop. And certainly with the social media, it's like that. We try and run our social media accounts as though they're our own. I'll let Liam talk a bit more about that, because that can be a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, running the social media accounts it's a sort of imperfect science, but definitely we try and run them as authentically as possible. So we try and make them authentic to the tone of the TV show that we're running them for. I think social media accounts that look slightly too polished, and they look like they've been produced by someone who possibly just sort of gets sent a pack of images and just puts them out on social media, whereas we're on set and we have access to the cast, and so we try and actually produce bespoke kind of assets for the social media accounts. So yeah, we do sort of try and run them. We get quite personal when people like them or don't like them, but yeah, that's a full-time job as well.
Yeah, I think we're very lucky, and certainly in the kind of Bad Wolf world, because Liam is sitting literally in the studios now, and when I'm there, we are part of the wider team. A lot of that sort of stuff for us depends on the broadcaster. So for instance, an HBO can want to market something very differently to BBC. They could both cut a trailer together and both of them would do a completely different edit. So we sometimes are the kind of middlemen who have to kind of figure out, HBO, the Dark Materials, for instance, the first few trailers, it was all kind of war and, kind of bombs and airships and battles. Whereas the BBC were like, oh, there's this little girl who goes on an adventure, you couldn't have got more different. So we're in the middle of that. And then when you're doing the publicity or the social media, we always try and kind of take a bit of all of it and see if we can somehow sort of position it so that it's a great show, no matter whether you like the bombs or the little girl.
It's quite interesting being publicity as well, even with me sitting here in the studio, because what we say, certainly when we get new people on board, is I try to say to them, look, we don't help make a TV show. When it's being made, we're a bit annoying because we need to do our jobs. We need to do photo shoots. We need to bring journalists on set. We need to interview the cast, but that doesn't help them make the TV show. Now, it's really important, and it's really important when they're trying to get people to watch it. But when you're actually making it, you know, production is trying to film a TV show, which is really hard. You've got schedules, you've got multiple actors, you've got weather changes on location. So it's a very much a movable feast, and we're trying to insert ourselves into it. So we have to, I think, be careful to just be considerate of that, but also kind of be helpful, make sure we get to know everyone on a personal level. If there's a difficult day, kind of taking a step back and not jumping on it with a photo shoot because it's proving a difficult day to film. It's also nurturing the relationship with production where it's give and take, you know, because mostly we're production's really helpful to us and we'll find the time to make things happen, but it's definitely a relationship where we've got to be considerate that they're filming.
And we have to be conscious, for instance, when they're on a location, that they've got one day to film everything they need to film there. They can't go back the next morning. So adding us into the mix is really annoying. And, you know, one of the things I learned very early on in my career, and which Liam, you know, I kind of made sure Liam learned quite early on, was you have to know when to walk away, because you may have paid a photographer to be there, but you have to know the point to say, we're not going to get anything, let's go. And one of the most frustrating things is, you know, 6 months after they finish filming and everybody's looking at what we created and they go, oh, why didn't we interview so-and-so on that set? And you go, yeah, we were standing there all day and we weren't allowed to.
I remember I phoned Chris once because obviously we do photography on set and a lot of it is while they're filming. So they'll be in the middle of a scene and they'll break to reset a camera or change a lens, and I'll run in with a photographer and I'll grab the actors and I'll go, right, pose like this because this is going to be the front cover of this magazine or it's going to be a poster, and we'll shoot like a mini photo shoot. And usually they give you 30 seconds to a minute before they're shooting again. And I remember there's this one day when I had to get the shots of the two leads on A Discovery of Witches, the two cast members in the library, and I was about to run on and get our shot, and then they switched on like a wind machine because they were meant to be there's a scene where they're like blown across the library and their hair is crazy and their clothes are ripped, and it's like the scene, and it was meant to be a scene. The shot we needed was not that. It was meant to be pristine, and they're just meeting for the first time and they're not like hair back combed and sort of all this stuff. And the production was like, well, I'm sorry, we need to get this filmed, so we can't make them look perfect. We need them to look sort of like they've just been blown across the room by this magical wind. And I remember phoning Chris, sort of going, what do I do? And I remember Chris just said, well, it's just not going to happen today. Just give up. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. But that's probably, you know, I was brand new at that point. And I sort of, like Chris said, that was the first time you're learning that lesson of like, sometimes you just have to accept that you don't want to piss off the entire crew by being annoying, and there's times when you just have to walk away and think, and we got it another day. There was another day where we could get the shot. So it's just sort of learning those lessons as well.
You know, if you want to work in TV and if you want to work in TV publicity and you know that, then that's, you know, very specific. My advice would always be, you know, unless you are 100% sure based on something that you're absolutely sure of, then think about every other role there is. But with publicity now, I think if you're absolutely sure that that's what you want to do, like I said, it's you know, we always say to people, how active are you on your own social media, for instance? Because, you know, like I said, we run our social media like they're our own, and it's, you know, you with publicity you used to have to work for the channel, whereas now, you know, we are an agency who work directly with production companies because they need looking after. They need, you know, their Bad Wolf needs its press done. So don't just think about, you know, going to the BBC and there are so many, you know, we're doing a scheme called Kickstarter at the moment, which is a government scheme where we get people coming in who are on benefits and who, you know, won't get an opportunity otherwise, and they come with us for 6 months. And Lucy, who's with us now, you know, we're about to extend her contract. So it's kind of, you know, just and being really flexible. I think, you know, being prepared to, you know, I said I graduated and ended up working on reception, but Bad Wolf Studios, every single person that sat on reception there in the last 4.5 years is now off doing, all sorts of fabulous things because, they were charming and engaging.
I think definitely when we chat to people who are looking for experience or looking to get a job in publicity, it helps if they're aware of actually, not necessarily what TV publicity is, it's quite hard I think to necessarily know, but it helps if they're conscious that there are TV campaigns and that this is a conscious thing, that when somebody's on the front cover of a magazine, that wasn't accidental, and the thought that went into that, and the fact that there was a photographer who shot it, there was sometimes an art director, knowing what they like to see on social media or maybe what their favorite TV show has been doing. If somebody says to me, I love what, say, Stranger Things does on their social media, that's great. That's immediately like, okay, you're aware that this is a thing that people do and you know what you like to see, what you don't like to see. Even better if they produce stuff themselves, if they have a blog or if they have a YouTube channel or if they've done a bit of editing or a bit of photography. It doesn't have to be like their professional quality, but if they can do a bit of that stuff to the point where they at least understand it, that stuff is all really helpful. And I remember even when I was just breaking into radio, it's a bit of a dirty word at times now, but I did a lot of work experience and I did a lot of hanging around and being annoying and saying, did they need help with anything, and coming in on days off and stuff. I know that there's, SOAR offer actual trainee schemes and stuff like that, which I think is even better. But all of that stuff, I think, goes into it.
And also, I think it's like, don't give up, because I wrote, again in the old days, letters to something like 120 production companies, and I got one phone interview out of it and no job. But I kept thinking, okay, well, as long as I'm waiting for somebody to write back or ring me back, and then I got the job at Channel 4, and the rest is a very long history. But there are, and also, do things that you might think, this isn't what I wanted to do, but you never know who you're going to bump into or who you meet.